Do you have a tear to spare? Make a promise, the world awaits. It's heavy just breathing through this debate. Come on, start a riot. When they love you too much, know it's fame, fake, or even hate. Don't be scared if the weight paralyzes you, stayed at the gate. No, it's a lot to take in, it's designed to know when, don't wait. Don't be scared when the weight paralyzes you, stay.
All right, what's going on, folks? Welcome to Adventure Talk Live, the live video version of the Adventure One podcast. Had a little bit of a hiccup trying to get this thing started, a little bit of an audio issue, but I think we've got it sorted out now, so hopefully it sounds okay. We're getting good audio from me and my buddy Kyle. What's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
I can hear you, so that's good. That's progress. We're not
much better than round one.
Yeah, we're not totally messing it up. So we do have the live chat on. Again, this is mostly for the podcast, mostly people listening later, but just if somebody chimes in with an interesting question, we will address that. If somebody chimes in with something stupid, we may skip right over it, but we'll just see how that goes. So I guess what we're mostly talking about today is kind of summer deer season prep and kind of the ranch work associated with it. So I guess, Kyle, do you kind of want to give just an update on, I guess it wasn't last weekend, it was the weekend before last, just kind of our quick, well, we even had two trips. I want to focus on the most recent one, but we even had one before that where we started getting stuff ready and kind of scouting it out. So
yeah, so you want to talk about the most recent one first?
We can either do that or we can kind of go in order, or it's all, or go by location. I don't know.
Yeah,
whatever you want to do.
Let's go location. So, looking at the ranch that we're setting up to hunt, we've got, I mean, there's a lot of acres out there. So, there's a lot of different places that we could potentially set something up, but we had to make a decision on where to set up our resources because we're going into this pretty cheap. We're looking for free things at best, and then if we have to spend a little money, we'll spend a little money, make things work correctly. So by picking up, some free feeders and getting old feeders to work, and between all those things and picking up a few cameras, I think it's looking pretty good right now, I would say, compared to the past few years that we've hunted at this place.
Yeah. Well, and so one thing to kind of clarify, so some background information. So this is just a permission place. It's not property we own. It's not property we lease. So we do want to go out there and make it better. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we don't have any control over this property. So that's why we don't want to just sink tons and tons of cash into it or anything permanent just because this may be, I don't know, the start of many great years hunting there. It may be the last year we hunt there. We don't really know. So that is kind of some background information to kind of why Kyle was saying, yeah, we want to keep it cheap and efficient and not go all out, but still kind of do the best thing that we can. So I guess...
Exactly. We maximize the potential for sure.
Yeah. So I guess... I don't know. Do you want to talk about Old Faithful? That's kind of the stand where I feel like everything always starts.
Yes. Well, it's the place where we started. It was the only feeder that was running the first time we went out there and hunted, and so we call it Old Faithful because I wouldn't even say because of the animals that are always there. I would say because the corn's almost always flowing from that feeder.
Yeah.
So it's Old Faithful, but it is the thing about Old Faithful. It is tucked back into pretty, for this for this property, it's the most dense location where trees are overgrown and things like that. Which to get animals in there, great. Get yourself in there without animals knowing it, not so great, is what I'm coming to find out.
Yeah, and it totally seems like when you go there in January or something, it really doesn't seem that bad. Like it seems pretty open. But then every year it gets more and more closed in because we're not really cutting trees, and it's a lot of elms and hackberries and just real thick junk hardwoods that just keep closing in on it. And so the feeder's pretty reliable, but it was set up kind of at a weird distance. So there was previously, the previous, I guess, leasee or whoever was out there hunting it, had set up a box blind out there, and then had also set up that feeder. And it was set up at what, 45 yards?
Yeah, 45 yard.
So it's kind of like a weird
distance.
Because if I'm on a bow hunt, I'm probably not going to set it up at 45 yards. It's too far. And rifle hunt, I don't know. I guess if you've got like a 30-30 with open sights and you just want to, like, I don't know. I don't know really.
Or if you people out there that are just first deer ever, maybe like it's just let's be far enough away from the animals that we don't spook them every time, but close enough where you got a decent shot. You can practice at 50 yards. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the idea was.
And I think you and I are both like, we kind of think, if you have complete control over the setup and you're going to set up a feeder and set up a blind, 100 yards seems to be about right. Yeah. You have a good enough buffer zone that it's forgiving, but you're not going to probably be pressed to take some extreme long range shots either. So
yeah, I mean, and then for archery between 20 and 25 yards, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
And you would know better than me, but from what you've said, right. You try to get around 20, but you want to be right on top of it because on a little better angle, and they blow them out a little too quick if they're walking right on every time.
So there was an old quad pod stand that was in there that was it was south of the feeder. And when we moved the feeder, now it's even further south of the feeder. And just the trees had just grown up and choked it out in there to the point where it wasn't even usable. And it was set up for, I guess if you had a strong north wind, it would have been okay. But the wind there's a southeast prevailing wind almost all the time.
And you're also circling the feeder to get to that.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way to sneak in.
There's no way to sneak in there without walking under the feeder pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. So we took that thing down, moved it all the way around, so it's now on the north side. So I think for that south, well, what is it, northwest? I think there's a little
It's a weird, I would say it's a weird curl right there when you walk. So it's kind of deceiving what direction you're looking.
Yeah, I think it's almost due north, but I think it's a really good setup. We got it about 25 yards from the feeder. We filled up that feeder. We had some issues because I was pulling the tape off the feed sacks, and apparently I wasn't paying attention and dropped one down in there, and that clogged up the feeder and delayed us for a little while.
Yeah. And that one has gotten moisture in it a couple times where I've had to clear it out. So that's something else when you think about feeders, is just how to keep moisture out of it, or rodents or whatever it is. I'm not sure. I mean, there might have been a little mouse that got up in there or something too, that they climb up in there and they'll die and then they clog up the whole thing or whatever. And so I don't know what it is, but I pulled it out and there's this black nastiness. It smelled like death.
Not good.
Stick a wire up in there and you twirl it around and you pull it down and then corn comes flowing out sometimes.
Yeah.
But sometimes just pull out this gob of rotten corn.
Just junk.
Yeah.
Ugh. We got that going, and we reset the last time we were out there, we had to pull your camera, but it was working great before that.
Yep.
So do you want to kind of talk about your camera setup?
Yeah, so I've got one of those cheap spy points, but it's a cell cam. I mean, if you're an avid hunter, you know what camera I'm talking about, because they are everywhere now. It's if you want to buy startup cell cam, it's the one to go with. But if you want amazing clear pictures and you know, well, I don't know about reliability. I don't know if there's even a $500 cell cam is reliable when it comes to setting a camera out in the middle of nowhere. And so, but it's been pretty reliable, and it tells you what's there.
Yeah.
It can't be like that deer that's kind of, 30, 40 yards away. I can't be like, oh, that's that deer I saw the other day. I'm like, I don't know. It's a buck.
Yeah. Well, and so we have no affiliation with SpyPoint or any other camera or anything like that. This is just the one where we're looking at it purely like bang for the buck. We want something that's generally reliable, good enough quality, and cheap. And so what do we get? Yeah. And
see, I always lean towards the cheaper side. Lenny usually leans, I would say, like middle line, maybe a little bit higher side. Yeah, middle of the road mostly. Or maybe, in my opinion, a little higher end. Obviously more higher end than me. But like, this is one of those things that's like, as you like, well, I want to buy 2 or 3 or 4 of these. It's like, I can't buy 2 or 3 or 4 or $500 cell cameras.
Well, and way back when cell cams were like first starting to catch on, I had a Spartan, and I got I brown nosed my way into some industry deal or something, and it was still like $299. And I was at the time, that was an awesome deal when they were normally like $500.
Yep.
But big picture, compared to what we have now, that one wasn't any more reliable. And in fact, their battery life was probably worse.
Oh, yeah.
And in terms of setting it up and configuring it, where you had to go buy a SIM card, or pull one out of a burner phone and then register it with the phone company and then put it in, versus SpyPoint did a great job. Yeah, it's just closed system.
Yep.
So
you have your own app. You don't have to like jump from this to this or pay this company to do this company to anything. It's all right there on the app. So like Plenty said, not promoting this company at all, but just straight up, from what I've seen, it's the easiest one to use, easiest one to set up, and quickest way to get in the game. You can find it on sale for $99. So
yeah,
that's just my opinion on it. So
what we've learned, list price is always $150. Just wait. It's always going to go on special at $99 at Tractor Supply or Academy, and they seem to just alternate those 2 deals. So just wait on it. So,
and then if you want, send Plenty a message, and we can give you like the code thing or whatever, so we can share each other.
Oh yeah, their little affiliate.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You get a $50 rebate on top of that, so you get it for $50 if you.
They're funny money. I haven't even. I think you sent me yours, and I haven't even done anything with it.
Come on, man.
I need to get another camera.
Yeah.
Put it somewhere.
$50 off a camera or $15 credit towards your account or whatever. So.
Yeah, I probably would take the credit because I think I'm about to re-up on mine. Well, do you want to talk about what you've got on that camera, or?
Yes. So like what I've seen so far on that location. Yeah. So starting off in the spring, so I just had this running. We had corn in that feeder in February, March. I don't know when it was. April, whenever.
We've never fed all year, so that was kind of our goal, was like to mostly generally go all year.
Yeah, well, I guess it was the first time we went out for turkey. We filled it up.
Yeah.
So, which was March or whatever. So we filled that feeder up in March. I put my camera on it then, and it's been there since like October, but March was when we started feeding again, and just had a bunch of little bucks come in. I mean, it's just, and in spring you're like, well, I don't know what it's going to turn into because they're all button bucks because they're in development, they're starting to grow. But as they did grow, and over the past few weeks, it's mostly 4.6 points coming through there, younger bucks, but consistently there's 3 does that are coming through that area. So, I mean, if you've got does consistent, what I've noticed is, and most deer hunters know, like, especially like if you're in Texas you have feeders in Texas or wherever else, if you've got does coming to the feeder, November, December, at some point you will have bucks following them. So it's like, that's actually what you want, because like November, December rolls around, if you're just having bucks on your feeder, you probably won't see them. They're out looking for does. Yeah. So
Yeah, well, and that's what I've seen, especially on public land. I found some spots where I hung a camera, and all during the summer, I was getting these awesome buck pictures of these bachelor groups, and then by the time season comes around, they've moved on somewhere else, and they're chasing those doe groups somewhere else, and so all those pictures that I hung on, or the cameras that I hung on public, were kind of worthless. Even though I got some cool pictures, and it was the first time I ever got a drop tine buck on camera, but
that's
it doesn't
yeah.
amount
So
to anything.
I think it's like, yeah, those if you like seeing bucks or whatever in a certain area and they're not does all over there too, then chances are, if you don't catch them right at the beginning of bow season, you probably won't catch them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're most of the time they've already moved by the time September rolls around, but some of them are still hanging around. You can catch them. That just surprise them on that first week of bow season.
Yep.
But there was a nice 8-point that was out there a couple weeks ago. But when I say nice 8-point on this property, a nice 8-point is like ear width,
Legal.
and
Yeah.
like
Well,
exactly. Which here it doesn't matter.
that's
but
true.
yeah, well, more. I mean, it would, in my book, it would be small. Which I haven't shot a lot of big. I've shot one really nice buck in my life, but it's a smaller buck.
be like-
'cause I've shot one off that property before, and I'm not like,
That one.
yay, look at this rack. I'm like, yay, I got meat, and like, there's a little rack.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The smaller ones behind his head, or that smaller one actually. The other one's
My
probably
first
a little
little
wider
buck.
than. Yeah, but that's like the general size for these antlers on this property.
Yeah.
Like we have not seen a monster yet. We haven't even seen a 10-point yet. Like a small 10-point. Like they're 8 points, standard 8 points. They're like 13, 14 inches wide.
Just the typical what you think of when you think of North Texas deer, generally.
Yes. Yes.
130, 140 pound 8-point.
Yep.
But
Exactly.
we did a couple years ago. I got a really nice 10-point, but just a couple. I think I got 1 or 2 pictures of them. And this whole place is kind of on a creek, so it's on a travel corridor. And so I think that was a buck that was really just running that travel route during November.
Yeah. Passing through.
He's not living there.
But that's what you want to catch when you're out there in November.
Yeah. But I was excited to see the number of does we have, because early on I was a little bit hesitant because mostly what we've taken off this property has been does. And so I was a little bit worried about the amount of does that we've taken.
Harvesting.
Yeah. And so
Like, should we harvest any this year, or should we just get 1 or 2 or whatever it was? And yeah, now looking at these pictures, I'm like, well, I've got 3, maybe 4 does consistently on this camera.
Yeah.
And now you start looking at other places and you're like, interesting.
yeah. And so in
But
terms
we'll get to the other locations.
potential hunters, there's anywhere between up to 5 potential hunters, I would say, on this property.
Yeah.
So I don't think we could all take a doe. Like, I just don't think that adds up. But we can take some does and it would be okay.
Yes.
Um,
I would say unless we see like herds of them coming through in the fall,
Yeah.
I would say like 2 does off the property, and then I would say 2 or 3 bucks off the property.
Yeah.
Because
there's
even if people just want to shoot a small buck like for food, like there's more young bucks than does, I would say, which is not the best situation you want.
I think ideally you probably want, people always talk about buck to doe ratio, and I think there's a lot of BS where people just have all these theories and they throw it around. And I don't know, I think a lot of them try to generally line up on you want it fairly even, but maybe slightly more does. But there's no exact ratio, I don't think that.
No. But I would say like probably want to do about equal numbers.
Yeah.
This year, because I mean, seeing more does now throughout the summer. In the spring, I was like, dude, it's just all these little young bucks, man, everywhere. But now I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of does too. So I'm like, it's probably pretty equal. So you probably just don't go too heavy on the does, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and you got a whole bunch of turkey poults on camera, which I was super excited to see.
So many turkeys. I mean, they're running through there almost every day too. I mean, there's think I got one picture where I legitimately counted 28. So
I love it.
that's one group. And so, I mean, they're there, and we saw little groups of them as we're driving around the property. They were, we were jumping them here and there, and they'd run off in the brush and look at you, or I bumped some, they flew away or whatever when I was hiking back one morning. So that's really cool to see, is that like those turkeys are just like moving around there. And I mean, it's the fact that like, we found it very hard to hunt this property for turkeys in the past few years. Yeah. But we're finding that like, it's the weird, like, I don't think we're great at calling. Like, I don't think I am. I can call a dumb turkey in, I can't call an educated turkey in yet. I'm not quite there. So I have to chase down the educated turkey and shoot the edge, like, just stay out of sight, because they're gonna see you.
Well, and I think there's so many coyotes, and then just like the only time they hear a bunch of other calls, I think, is when they're being hunted. Like, it's just kind of weird pressure. And so I think if you're like you said, if you're a really good caller, then these just probably sound like excuses. But if you're a mediocre caller, and like I can call and get them to gobble back every time.
Yep.
But
me too. Yep.
Getting them to come in, different story.
Yeah. I mean, like before, like this past year, I thought I was a good caller because I could like mimic so much. The thing is, like, I can make most of the sounds. I don't know what tone and level and consistency and those other just like little X factors to calling. Yeah. I don't know those yet. I can mimic most sounds with, a diaphragm or a box call. Those two tools, I would say, like, I'm pretty good at making the sounds. I'm like beyond beginner for sure.
And to put that in context, know, like, that's almost like, like I know all the words, I just don't know when to use them.
Yes. It's like speaking a foreign language, but just like being like, hola, mi casa, cuando, just like throwing out a bunch of random words and be like, look, I know Spanish.
Yeah. And all the people who actually speak it, the turkeys in this case, are just like,
yes, like, you're an idiot. Stay away from me.
There's a moron in the woods.
Exactly. Yes.
But we were both able to get one. You got a nice gobbler this year, and then I got a Jake. But both of us just by bushwhacking them, by just like, exactly. We got him to talk to us a little bit, and then when we had an opportunity, we just snuck in and we were turkey assassins more than turkey callers.
You crawled in 100 yards. I sprinted.
Yeah,
100
exactly.
yards.
Like wildly opposite, but still the same strategy.
Oh yeah, spotted it and I stalked it.
Yeah.
Stalking may have been two different things, but we stalked them and we killed them. So, and they were delicious.
Yeah, wild turkey's great.
So yeah, seeing a ton of turkeys, and then infrequently seeing hogs, which these hogs are running that streamline, the creek bed, constantly. It's just, they're very inconsistent.
And these are a frustrating group of piggies. Like, I feel like sometimes pigs can be very consistent and easy to pattern.
Yes.
These are just like, who knows? They just randomly show up, like a huge gang of them, tear crap up and leave. We go out there looking for them.
That one big boar will come through. One of the two.
Yep. Pigs, and then raccoons. I think. Yeah. You've got one, I've got three for the year.
I hope I have two. I don't know.
That's true.
When I lined a raccoon up at 3 yards, there was two of them lined up, and I just 270 from 3 yards.
It's just a fur explosion.
Yes, it was an explosion. So I think I got the one behind it too, but I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I think that spot is going to be a good spot. So we'll just kind of see. And then, so we set up a new spot this year too. There was another feeder that had been just kind of all kinds of trouble for us down on the creek. I had gotten a few pictures of deer walking by, but a deer never ate at it. and it's right where the cows would go. So we put like a pretty intense pin around it. Well, I guess to back up there, we put the intense pin around it because I filled it up with Record Rack Golden Deer Nuggets, which is apparently like cow cocaine. Like the second I poured those things, all these, and they're like these big fat like Wagyu cows, and they just like ran in there and just wrecked shop, tore the whole thing up. So after that, we're like, okay, we need to defend this place, and we put up a fence. Well, Kyle put up the fence. Actually, you pounded T-posts without a T-post pounder.
Yeah. Kyle and Mario sunk in about 12 T-posts, and it was not fun. And it took a long time because we were using a sledgehammer, which if you've ever put in a T-post with a sledgehammer, think of that without a ladder or anything like that. So you're just like, luckily, my buddy Mario is 6'4", I think, and he can like knock them down. Once he got them halfway down, then I was doing the same thing because I'm short. I'm up here at my shoulders knocking them down. So
well, you went to all that effort, and then that was basically a raccoon feeder for 6 months. Every once in a while, I'd get pigs. Every once in a while, I'd get turkeys. But every night, I would get raccoons. And I shot 2 raccoons off of there. I think 2 or 3. I think 2. I tried shooting in another one down by the river, and I missed.
I hunted raccoons on that feeder one time. We all know how that ended up. I had my 6-year-old with me at the time, and his allergies were so bad, he sneezed the whole time. I felt horrible, and I just took him back to the truck and turned the air conditioning
poor kid,
off
this isn't fun.
Yeah, and he did not complain one time. I will say that. He did not. He just kept looking up at me because I was sitting up on a little short, it's like a 5-foot little
ladder
stand thing,
yeah.
Just so you can see over the grass pretty much. And he was sitting right down at the bottom of it, just kind of hanging out. And he just kept looking up at me and his eyes are all puffed up. He's sneezing. Never said a word though. I was like, dude, you're a rock star. Let's go back to the truck. He's like, okay.
He's like, but I can tell you're miserable.
Yes, exactly. I was like,
So we tore that one down, moved it uphill into the middle of this mesquite flat, and just driving around, took my truck through all the mesquites we possibly could, scratched it up as much as possible.
Yeah.
But it was an area that terrain-wise, I don't know, it's like kind of close to the road to the neighbor's property where deer might cross over, kind of close to the creek, kind of close to an open field. It's kind of like right in the middle of a couple interesting features, but the actual spot is unremarkable. But we just set it up there just because it's so far from the other spot that we basically realized, hey, if we're pulling deer here, they're going to be different deer. I mean, there's a chance something's running through both, but any regulars here will be different.
Regulars.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want them just jumping back and forth because then when you go hunt one spot, they might be at the other or vice versa. So
yeah. And so
try to spread out your feeders enough unless you have some other good reason for it, which I'm sure there are other good reasons for it. But if you're like just starting to set something up out on your property, just think like how far apart you want those. I mean, you want them, I would say minimum like quarter mile, 400 yards.
Yeah.
Sure, like that would be close.
Yeah.
You probably want closer to like 800, 1,000 yards apart.
And these are well over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, depending on your terrain too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got, cliffs or things like that, I don't know what your property looks like, and look where the trails are, look where your animals are moving from one place to another. And if you have just like a beeline from one feeder to the other, then if you're the only one hunting those 2 feeders, if they're sketchy about one spot, they're just going to go to the other one, and they'll never see it.
Going to chase them back and forth. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or eventually run them off both.
Yeah.
Well, and then that feeder, so originally it was one of those Moultrie kit deals that comes with the legs and comes with the funnel and the plastic housing and all that. But I had a little accident down there. I knocked it over and dented it. This is after the cows had knocked it over the first time, so it was in pretty sorry shape, to the point where we couldn't even really get it to stand up and get it back together.
Yeah.
So I just bought a old, 55-gallon steel drum that I think was used to store like cranberry juice concentrate or something. It smelled very fruity.
Yes.
So I just bought that on Craigslist. We went down there and just kind of replaced it all. Got that built up. Kyle, you bought like nice steel legs for it. We got that set up. Got the electronics. Yeah. I really like going forward. The Moultrie plastic hanging system. Not a fan.
No.
Just it takes one tumble and that polycarbonate's gonna crack every time.
Not even a tumble. Like one cow walking under it and it's gonna crack.
Yeah.
Like a cow's gonna go in there, smack it with its nose, like try to get at whatever little corn's left up there, and it cracks. Like, and even like you just like doing something dumb and like slipping and
dropping
hitting
it
or
one
something
time.
like
Yeah.
It's like I put a new one on there. I don't know, probably 6 months ago or something like that. After Plenty put one on there, and when it all took a tumble, it all smashed up or whatever. So I put a new one on there, and that sucker's already cracked. Like I don't know, 3 months later. It's like this is trash. So yeah, there's one of my friends, he buys ones that are just like all metal, and I was like,
yeah, it's just a sheet metal box.
Yeah, I was like, that's like worth the extra $40-$50 for sure. Whatever I don't even know how much it costs.
I don't even think if you buy like the kit one, I don't even think it's more expensive. I think it's about like within a couple bucks.
Okay,
but
well, never again.
Yeah.
Will I buy a plastic Moultrie?
Yeah.
Heater. And I'm guessing Moultrie has better ones, but don't buy the super cheap one.
Probably, but that's just the one that when you buy the feeder that's got everything in the barrel with the legs, like that's just what it comes with.
Yeah.
And you tend not to think about it because you're like, oh, it comes with everything.
If you don't have any cattle on your property, if everything's like nice and it's easy to set things up and everything, one of those might be just fine. And like you can back your truck up to it and fill the feeder from, the bed of your truck and things like that. Like if everything's like super simple for you and there's no other variables, one of those cheap Moultrie feeders would be just fine, I think. And if you're like very cautious about not getting, anything hitting it or things like that, it'd be all right. It works fine. We've never had it like not like work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's just the plastic brackets are trash. If you have any, they don't last.
Well, and I remember old school like hunting in places in East Texas where people had just setups that they had made, and I remember the timers were always the problem. Those analog timers with the pins that you would put in, but now the digital timers, I have not had one of these digital timers fail on me. They're all good. Like even the cheapest, grungiest ones are fine.
If your battery's good, your timer's good.
Yeah, and you're right. The batteries, and I think buying the lead cell rechargeable, like that's the way to go. Those like 6-volt lantern batteries with the little springy terminals on them.
Oh, really?
They don't recharge, and so you've got a limited life, and so you pay $6 for that versus $9 for a rechargeable.
Oh, you're saying to get a rechargeable?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Sure. Yeah. That's what I thought you were saying. Get the one with the springy thing on. I was like,
no.
Because then, you get, buy a cheap little solar thing. You could put it on there and all this stuff, and
Yeah, and so now we've got everything, and that's something we didn't mention either. On both of those setups, at least, we've got them running solar too, and so we don't have to worry about the batteries dying. In Texas, it's sunny most of the time, so I think running solar was well worth the little bit of extra effort and few dollars to set that up.
Yeah, and I mean, I found some solar panels on clearance at Walmart for I think $11. So I bought a couple of them, and they were great. If you put them in a sunny spot, you're good to go.
And you bought them like January or something, like end of the year, because you're like, maybe I'll need them later.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I think I texted you actually, and I was like, I think I sent a picture. I was like, is this a good deal? And you're like, yes. If those work on feeder batteries, perfect.
Yeah, because normally they're like $29 or something.
Yeah, and you can get them. I think I've seen some now for $19, and those are the cheap ones. So like, and these are the cheap ones too, but they work. But like $11, man. Now that I think about it, I should have bought like 6 of them. So,
Yeah.
but I still have one more that we can hook up. So
Start a solar farm.
yeah, just so you know, if there's another spot for either, because you can hook you can set up the cameras with solar too. So you can do your camera with solar, and you can do your feeder with solar, and then you just don't have to worry about batteries. I mean, for years, probably a couple of years, and then you replace them after weather gets to them or whatever. But
you say that, but on this setup, this same feeder setup, I'm running the same camera as you, the SpyPoint Link Micro.
oh yeah,
And I wired it to a tree because I don't believe in any fabric straps now. I believe in steel wire. I've had too many things get chewed up, so I use steel wire.
Yeah.
And in fact, the only one we've got on this place that I used a fabric strap is the one we'll talk about in a second that got all jacked up.
Oh yeah.
But so I wired that to the tree, and I am running I think it's from Hunting Made Easy or Stealth Cam. I don't know. It's the GSM product that looks like the little ammo box with the camera on top of it and the battery inside. Worked great, but then it doesn't meter properly on the camera. And so like it said 0% battery ever since I plugged it in. It's always said 0% battery. And then just a couple days ago, it quit sending pictures. So either it's been at 0 and the solar has just been keeping even for the last couple months, and then I don't think that's it. I think probably something bumped it and it got unplugged, because that is one point of failure of these cameras. And I'm not picking on SpyPoint, of all of these cameras. It's just a plug that's up and down, so it's so easy to pull out. It needs a screw-in plug like an antenna.
I agree with that. We should just take electrical tape and wrap it around that plug, around the whole camera, and just like.
I tried it, but if you go right around, that's right where the lens is.
Oh really?
Yeah.
The plug is at the same level as
it's
the
like
lens?
right behind like the door and the like.
Yeah.
And so what I ended up doing is I shoved a piece of wire in there to try to tension it, and it's good, but it's also like I feel like I'm kind of breaking it, because it's I'm trying to think of an example. But like I'm putting it in there, and then I'm like intentionally putting sideways pressure to make it not slip.
Yeah.
But
maybe
that's not something you should do to a plug.
No, but you should wrap tape around below the camera, and like just around the bottom of the camera and the wire. So like if things pull on it below that, it
it has like a give.
Yeah, I don't know.
Tension.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah. Well, and I don't even know that it got unplugged.
thing.
Maybe the battery died. I don't know.
No, here's the thing. I'm telling you. I mean, I know you like it sending you pictures instantly, but these cameras work great if you do this. This is the key to keeping your cell cam batteries alive for a long time. I will use your hot tip or whatever you want to call it. Those stupid whatever. Have it set your camera to send you pictures either once or twice a day. I do mine twice a day, 5 a.m., 5 p.m. It sends me pictures, and then make bigger intervals between pictures taken too. So like I do it 5-minute intervals.
I do 10,
which is kind of a long time. Yeah. So do that, and then have them send it just like twice a day, and put lithium batteries in it. And guess what? Mine lasted like 9 months on the same batteries. And it wasn't until the trees closed in over top of my camera and it was having a hard time getting service that the batteries died, which is what happened last time. It's like the service got bad because the trees just like grew in over top of the camera so bad, and my batteries went bad. But like they were at like 65% before the cellular service went out or whatever. So that's just my opinion, and if that happens, like if my batteries work for 9 months on a cell camera, like I'm not even gonna play with that cord.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just what I'm thinking. I think that's like overkill.
Well, so I started that down on my place down south, where I literally get 100 pictures a day.
Yeah.
And so that's where I was just like, I need some way to recharge the battery down there. But to your point,
For sure. And that's really far
yeah,
away.
exactly. I can't get down there.
Which you're still going down there. Yeah, you're going down there pretty regularly, but it's far away where you're not just like, I'm gonna run out and fix my
Yeah,
camera.
no.
You know,
No.
where like where I'm going or where we're going, like
Yeah.
it's 2 hours away. Like if I need to run out there, I'm gonna run out and drop this camera off
And
probably sometime in the next 4 or 5
that's
days.
a thing that Texas or that Eastern hunters, I think, don't really get as much when we're like, yeah, it's kind of far to drive out there. So the close one, 2 hours. That's the close spot.
hours. Yeah.
The
far
one where I'll go out and back in a weekend, but it's a little rough, 6.5 hours each way. And I think there's a lot of like Eastern people where people are like, yeah, there's nowhere close to me to hunt. I have to drive like an hour. And I'm just like, oh, shut up.
Yeah. How many times have you made that trip out there this year?
Oh,
About.
6? I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's all through the fall and everything? 6 times? I thought it was more than that.
Wait, out to which one? My spot?
Out to your far one.
Oh,
Yeah.
10.
Yeah, exactly. Like at least 10
Yeah.
times. And you've driven like 6 hours each
Yeah,
way. for a
thousands of
weekend.
miles.
Literally half the time you like leave Saturday morning and get back Sunday night. Like
But
you
I get it
have
done, don't
2
I?
hunts. Yep, oh, heck yeah, man. Dude, I've got a leg in my garage on ice telling me that you get it done.
Well, at this place, I do like the close option, and it's cool to have a place like this where we can kind of experiment with it and mess with it. And then at this same feeder, we set up a platform. So I kind of drew up some plans, and then Kyle adapted them and made them his own. I like what you came up with. Do you want to kind of talk about that build for that little platform?
Yeah, so I built a platform, and it's it's almost a 4x4. It's like I will just call it a 4x4.
It's like 45 by 48
platform.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, 40s. Like both dimensions are in the 40s. I think 43 by 46 or something like that. Whatever. But my build, so Plenty had these plans he sent them to me, and I mean I'm a builder, anyways. Like I do a lot of woodwork. I built a big old tree fort for my kids in the back and whatever / shed. So I just took them, and my goal was to make it as cheap as possible. So as I'm like running around talking to, I live in a new development, talking to contractors about getting some wood from them and things. I picked up, good amount of actually 2x10s. So these like
Nice.
giant 2x10s is what I end up with, and they're not long. I mean, they're long enough to be part of that platform. So Plenty sends me these plans. I had some 2x4s already in the garage. I mean, like I just always have 2x4s just laying around. So I reconfigured length and width. Oh, and I ran to Home Depot, and I went back to their like scrap pile section of wood, which they like throw like purple paint on or something like that. If you've ever been there and looked back in the back of the lumber section, it's 70% off if you go back there and pick up anything with the purple spray paint. So my key is go find some purple spray paint in Home Depot,
Right.
walk down to the section and just start spraying all the things. No, just kidding.
You find purple oops paint, so you're not paying full price for
Yeah,
the paint.
yeah. No, then you just put the spray paint back on the good show. No, I'm just kidding. But I went back there and I found this like 2 giant 2x6s. So I was like, oh, heck yeah. And they're treated, which like I was going to just get untreated lumber, and I bought a bunch of oops paint that Plenty said to buy, and was just painting with that. And I bought some spray paint too, just because I was like, I don't want to paint this whole thing because I'm too lazy to do that though. I wanted to buy cheap lumber, but I didn't want to buy all the cheap paint because painting with the paintbrush took too long. So I got these big 2x6s, 70% off. They're, so I got home and I just put it together that way. And I built the frame, but I couldn't find any legs for it.
And that's a
because
weird
of
thing. Yeah, I think
the
it's all
lumber
this
thing right now.
COVID
Yeah,
stuff. I think some
yeah,
of the well, all of these 4x4 posts, they're all treated. And so I think it's whatever company does the treating is having supply issues. But I think there's also a lot of people who are just home right now, and so they're working on decks and random projects.
yeah,
And so I think supply is significantly shorter and demand is notably higher. So it made it
yeah.
tough.
Even the untreated stuff was like not there because I was like, oh, I'll just paint up some untreated wood, just down where the feet would touch the ground. I was like, I'm just gonna put a ton of, like 3 layers of paint down where the feet touch the ground and just
Yeah.
like soak them in paint, pretty much like dip them in a paint bucket, But I couldn't find that at all. There's nothing. There's no treated 4x4s at all at the Lowe's or Home Depot I went to, and under 12 feet, which I was like, I'm not paying $500 for
Yeah.
the legs to this
Wobbly
stand that I'm
legs.
putting up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, ugh. So plenty ended up picking up the 4x4s.
And just 6-footers too. I think originally we
Yeah,
were looking for 8s, but they didn't have any of those, so we found 6, and we're like, that's fine. That means you're shooting from about 8-9 feet. All good.
yeah, yeah. Which that's good. Like
In the mesquites.
safety, yeah, safety is a good thing. And then the mesquites where we hunt. If you know anything about mesquites, they're not that tall. I
Yeah.
mean, they can get tall for sure. They can get huge, but these are mesquite flats, like new mesquite flats that like probably cleared out 10 years ago or whatever, and they'd start popping up. So if you've been in West Texas or wherever else you got mesquites, they just like pop up real quick and they shoot up fast. But these, I mean, what would you say? 15 feet is
Yeah.
like no normal size for the mesquites out in this area.
Yeah.
Um, so like being up at 6, your feet are at 6 feet. So, you're at 11, 12 feet, depending on your height. When you're standing up, let's say you're bow hunting, it's, I mean, it's not, you don't want to be skylined by these deer. So you tuck it back into mesquite. You trim the branches directly around you, but you leave all the cover behind your head you can, so that it's just like it breaks you up. Which, like, this is where people are like, "Oh, you can wear whatever you want." I agree with that to an extent, but when you have breakup of mesquites behind your head, I would wear camo to break myself up in that mesquite.
Yeah.
And it's not a like, I don't care what color it is. Like, obviously I'm not going to wear like neon blue, but if you just have something break you up and you're standing there on that platform, say plenty's up there bow hunting, and you're broken up with the mesquites behind you, like, you're good to go, man. If your wind's good, you're good, man. It's a legit spot. It's nice.
Yeah, I like it. And you did a really good job of building a nice sturdy ladder. So there's nothing sketchy climbing up on it. And we notched it out there, so it leans at about a 15-degree angle, so it's nice and easy to climb onto. And I ended up sitting there actually for a little bit, and I really liked that spot.
Yeah. And if you want to see what that looks like or whatever, you can message us and
Yeah.
ask us what kind of type of plans or whatever. What I regret right now is when I go out to dove hunt, I'm going to take pictures of like all the spots and stands and stuff like that, and then
Good call.
start building brush blinds and taking pictures of them. So like, I mean, if you want to know what they look like,
Yeah.
you want to go cheap, we'll let you know how to go cheap, man.
That's how you do it.
Like, I think I spent like, I didn't buy the legs. Quentin bought the legs, but I think I spent $30 on lumber total, and
The
another
legs were like 38, something
okay,
like that.
and then I think I spent $12 on paint, which is because I bought spray paint. But if you want to do the work and just get some oops paint, you can like get away with like $4.
Yeah, I was gonna say I painted a stand
$5
bigger than
or
that.
whatever.
Painted the entire thing for $8. So
Yeah, so you can get under 10 for the paint if you want to paint it. But I was being lazy, and I was like, I'm just gonna buy a couple of random cans, and we can throw some extra paint on it when we get out there, whatever.
yeah,
So that was my laziness. I spent an extra probably $5, which whatever.
But the
So,
most important thing is not the color, not the height. I know there are a lot of people who talk
Yeah.
about that, but it's the wind. And where we set that up compared
Yeah.
to where the trails come in and out and where the feeder is perfect.
Yeah.
And so,
The predominant winds.
yeah.
You can hunt that in both predominant winds.
And that's what's important, because I think a lot of people think of the wind and so they're like, oh, I want to be dead downwind. Ideally,
Yeah.
but what you want is the spot that is the most, it's consistently okay. And so that spot,
Yeah.
when the wind is coming from the way that it comes the most, the southeast, the wind is about like on your right cheek. So you're not looking into it. You're about 45 degrees to the wind.
Yes.
And then when we get one of those cool northers and weather's coming from the other side, it's like it's on your left shoulder.
Also, yep, angled off of the feeder. Yeah.
And so you're never blowing your scent into where the trails and where the feeders are.
Yep.
And I've found that a lot of smart pigs even and mature bucks won't ever come from straight upwind and walk at you. They'll walk across the wind or something like that. So a lot of times if you're straight downwind of something, they're going to walk right into you and it's not going to work out well.
Yeah.
So if you can get 45 degrees to
They're
weather.
gonna walk behind you and
Yeah.
run away.
Yeah. Well, and that actually
if you can
happened to me
angle.
down south with a pig on this other hunt I just went on. And I don't even know if I told you that or not, but I was waiting on an exotic deer, but when I was sitting in the blind, I glassed some pigs in the dark, some black spots running out there. And then I heard it's real rocky, so I heard something kick a rock behind me. And so I figured it was probably a pig because the deer don't kick rocks too much. They're a little bit more elegant. And then I just heard like something walking around, something circle downwind of me. And then from straight downwind of me, I just heard. And so that's when you know it's like, when you hear that growling sound, it's just some big old smart boar. Like the little pigs that just grunt. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But when you hear that, that's when he busted me. But we got that spot like perfect for the win, so I'm excited. Then we went to go set up a new spot, and this one was at a little corner of the property that we thought was actually the neighbors. And so it was a pleasant surprise to learn that this area was actually fair game. It's still right on the edge, but this was from the guy out there who works on all the fences and helps with the cattle and sprays the cactus, and he works his tail off down there. And he was like, yeah, I saw some deer coming here. You might want to check this area out. So
It's the biggest year of his life, man.
yeah. Who knows what that means?
But here's the thing. It might have, like, a big deer might have walked through there to get water at some point.
Yeah.
But the question is regularity.
Yeah.
Like, are there deer coming in consistently to this area? And it's kind of weird. Because, like, Plenty, like, you saw, like, this heavy game trail, it looked like.
Oh, it was a highway.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going on, but...
Well,
we
and
set
then I
up-
also found the leg from a fawn
Yeah.
in the trail.
Yeah.
So to me, that
Had to
said,
be this year.
well, yeah, it had to be this year, and there was a doe with a fawn in the area, and there were coyotes in the area, which also, on the same trip, a couple hours before this, Daniel and I were just walking around, and he jumped up a coyote out of that field, and the sucker took off running, and he just pulled up on it with his AR at about 80 yards and just popped it, dropped it right there.
Yeah,
So
which is
kudos to
freaking
him.
amazing. Yeah, way to go, man.
it was a great shot with an
Yeah.
AR on a running coyote.
AR 80 yards on a running coyote, like, way to go.
Yeah.
Like, that's good. Some good marksmanship right there.
So, and there's so many coyotes there, and with all the turkeys and the fawns and we need to take out as many as we can. So I was excited about that.
And this is a place where when we go out there to hunt, we usually camp.
Yeah.
And so when you you get back from whatever you're doing that night or whatever, and you lay down, it's just Coyote City, man. It's
You hear them all night long.
like,
Yeah.
The first hour after it gets like dark, Like it is just nuts. And then
It's
you'll
like,
hear them
yeah,
throughout
right
the
when
night.
everything settles in,
Yeah.
right when you're
Yeah.
starting to get relaxed, right when
They
you're
get
maybe thinking about going to
Yeah.
bed, or actually for us, usually like when we're cooking dinner, because we're always running late out there.
Yep.
Everything else gets quiet, and then you just hear,
Oh, and then it just goes nuts. The first bark,
Yeah.
everything else goes crazy, and then it'll settle down. But like throughout the night, you'll like wake up to coyote howls. It's
Yeah.
like midnight, 2 a.m.,
Yeah.
4 a.m. Like every 2 hours, they're just like, "Yep, we're still here." And there's been times when I mean they've probably been within 100 yards of us, running through, just yipping and howling or whatever. But most of the time, they're 1,000 yards away, just
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of our standing rule out there is whether you're hunting turkeys or deer or whatever, if a coyote's in range, it's a coyote hunt. You shoot them.
yep, yes, yep.
But we
Take 'em
set
out.
up this new spot, and it was kind of on this rocky hillside, so it seemed a little iffy. It didn't look like great terrain, except for this really heavy trail. So originally, I went and threw down like one of those protein blocks. I got one from Record Rack, and then Kyle showed up with this like big ass granola bar looking thing that looks like something you would buy at Whole Foods. But it ended up being super high in protein, and apparently it's some sort of deer magnet. So we ended up just dropping that in the trail and set that up. I set a camera on a little mesquite tree. We got all set up, and then later that day we were like, well, we kind of assessed the parts we had left over, and like, well, we might as well just go set up a feeder there. We kind of have nothing to lose because we've got enough parts to put together another feeder. I think I ran in time to
Literally
get
had a feeder sitting around.
yeah, all we needed was a battery, and I had picked up one from the store for that other one. So with old parts Daniel had, and then the battery, and then we were good to go. So like, it's literally, and I think I was trying to be lazy. I'm like, yeah, we don't need it. We got that other protein block. Let's see what hits it before we set it up. And you're like, it's literally just sitting there. Let's use it.
Like,
And
we set this like fully functional feeder, like sitting here, not doing anything.
locked in a grain silo. Yeah.
Yes, or we just put it out. Like we got corn bags, we've got everything. Like,
Yeah.
why not?
So that was a good call. So thank you for your constant logic there. And then also thinking about it, this is so far from the other two spots. We just made a huge triangle that any deer that we're going to get on this one are going to be pulled from the neighbors. It's not going to interfere with anything else.
Yeah. So it's I would say almost like a pinch point.
Yeah.
Not really, but kind of, where it's like neighbor's property kind of has some like heavier stuff over here, and then there's a water source over here, and then there's a field out here. So it's like, but this feeder is on a spot where it's like the trail between the heavy neighbors stuff and this water source. So it's like, I think they're just like running this line between like water and going back into heavy cover and picking up food along the way or whatever. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah.
Well, and then I'm so
I'll sit
used
on
to,
it.
yeah, exactly. I'm so used to places especially in South Texas, where the deer are just way more worried about starving than getting shot and setting stuff up. And even in thick woods, when you set up like protein or minerals or anything, I'm used to the deer finding it usually within 24 hours. And so I was shocked that it was 6 days before cows found it. And we thought this area was cow proof and they couldn't get in there. And then I saw two big heifers in there just knocking stuff around. And now my camera's pointed like 45 degrees the wrong way.
Yeah.
And at first I thought they had knocked over the feeder too. And I was like, oh no, because I've had those experiences with that same model of feeder.
Yeah.
But now in the corner of my pictures, I saw what I thought was a stick. But I'm pretty sure it's the feeder leg still standing.
Oh, I didn't know that. Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure that the feeder's still standing because I think the cows went for those protein blocks that we had on the ground, so they didn't.
Sure.
So they didn't screw with the feeder.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's good. Well, not good that the cows got in there because they're not supposed to be in there. So we got to lock them out next time.
Yep.
But I think it was a couple days after that I started getting night pictures of deer. and then just recently I started getting a couple day pictures. So
Nice.
I have one doe, just normal Texas sized doe, and then a little buck. But I can't tell what he is. I can tell he's not big. I just saw
Yeah.
that there's something up there. So a little basket rack or something. And
Yeah.
he doesn't look like a big bodied animal. But it's good because these are bonus animals that we're pulling off the neighbors, not
Yep.
that we're pulling away from our own stuff. So
Yeah.
if that's one more legal doe we can take off this place, I call it a win.
Yep. And I feel like something that I think is interesting is like throughout the summer, I've noticed that like I don't know if they're 1.5-year-old or 2.5-year-old bucks are like hanging with mom for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're still like, well, I don't have my bachelor group yet, so I'm just gonna hang around with moms because I've seen the like 4-point with a doe so often, and I'm pretty sure, and the doe is like, I'm pretty sure has a fawn. I think that little 4-point is like probably 1.5-year-old hanging out with mom still. Like
I think that's exactly what it is.
like not cool enough to hang out with the men yet.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just that annoying little teenager.
Yep.
But
Like,
then
you can go hang out with mom.
yeah, but then probably about the time she weans the fawn, she'll probably also run him off as well, and he'll start
for sure,
doing his
yeah.
own thing.
Or another buck will run him off when
Yeah, true.
he's like in heat, and some like 8-point's gonna be like, get the heck out of here. It's your competition now.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
care that you're his son.
Get out of here, mofo.
Exactly. No, but that's what I've been seeing at Old Faithful is like a 4-point with a doe, and
Yeah,
it's like,
a doe and
I
last
mean,
year's
like I've
buck.
seen 2 does together, like that's happened quite a bit. But then the other pair that comes in is a doe and a 4-point. It's like a super, like really young buck.
Yeah.
Dude,
Well, and I think especially on this new spot, I'm
cut the
kind of
cord,
excited.
man.
What's that?
I said, cut the cord, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm kind of excited on this new spot getting, a doe, and that small buck is not a shooter, but the deer that are bedded on the neighbors, but crossing over just to eat here, those to me are candidates for what you shoot first. Those aren't the ones living here. They're just coming
sure,
over to
yeah.
mooch food.
Yeah.
And so they're not really making the population better. It's a bonus deer as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. Get out there and take one out. Get some meat in
Yep.
the freezer.
Yep. So those are good
That
candidates.
is, yep.
Uh,
And if you get a big one,
Yeah.
awesome. If not,
Yeah.
awesome.
It's extra. And that's why, man, in Texas, you've got enough tags. I think in general, they want people to shoot more does. That's why you get 3. I mean, technically, if you did it right by counting, you could shoot 5 does in Texas. No, wait, no. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it says antlerless on your license. Or,
I think
Uh,
there's one tag that's buck only, maybe.
oh, really? I
don't
don't
have
know.
my
I'd have to
license.
look at it.
I know you can shoot up to 3 bucks.
I don't have those tags on my license
Uh.
anymore. I shot too many deer last year. I'm just kidding. Actually, I didn't. I only shot 2 deer that I used my my whitetail tags on.
That's true. Because you shot
Which is
MLD
weird.
and then you shot exotics.
Yeah. Yeah. So like when I say I only shot 2 deer, it sounds weird because I actually shot 5 deer. Because everybody else is like, dang, you shot 2?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Like, yeah, that is awesome. 2 is the most I've ever shot until last year. And then I shot 5.
Just line them up, knock them
Which I will
down.
probably never match. But
Nah, I don't know. Don't rule it out too early.
the last location we're talking about is the Silver Bullet.
And that's a part of
Alright.
it. Like that's like hunting camp rules. Is you got to come up with clever, stupid little names for all these. So we got Old
Yeah.
Faithful, we got Blue because the barrel is blue.
The only blue thing on the property.
And then that kind of hill I was talking about, it has a bunch of yuccas on it, and it's a south-facing slope, and there's not too many yuccas the rest of it, so I just called it Yucca Hill. Like, very,
Well, it's covered in
Yeah.
yucca plants. If you don't know what a yucca is, it's
you don't
like,
live in Texas.
think of a aloe plant, like an aloe vera, aloe.
Like,
think of one of
it's-
those.
It's evil
but,
cousin.
like, desert
Yeah.
edition. Like, spikes on the end of everything, which I think you can like. Is that the one where you can like pull the spines out and like make rope out of
Make
it? Or
like
whatever?
string. Yep. And then
Or,
the
like,
the
thread.
core of them, I think, is like it's almost like an artichoke or something.
You
Like
get
the
water
core
out
of
of
them
it.
is eat it. Yeah, is edible.
Eat it. Yeah. So the last one, the Silver Bullet, which this one came about as Plenty and I were like tromping around, like driving his truck everywhere on the property, being like, "This is like the farthest place away from the other
All the others,
places."
yeah.
Yes, it's like just get away. Like there's water there. It's really dry right now, and there's still a little bit of water left, so it's consistent water. Like if you hit August and there's still water in any pond or tank, wherever you're from, whatever you want to call it, then that is a reliable water source.
Do you know what
And
they
this is
call them in Fannin County?
I don't even know where Fannin County is, but no,
So
I don't.
Fannin County and Grayson County, Texas. It's the only place ever I've heard they call them pools. Everywhere else, it's ponds or tanks. But in those two
You-
counties in Texas, you'll talk to a farmer and be like, "Yeah, the cows are down at the pool." And I'm like,
You don't get any
Huh?
more redneck than that. When you call your like nasty cattle pond a pool.
And-
So you're like,
Like
You know why
they're
they
they're
call
not
it a pool?
associating it with a swimming pool at all, but they're
Oh,
just like the
oh,
pool of water that they just call them pools.
Yes.
It's a Fannin County thing.
hell, yes, they are. Are you kidding me? They're associated with a pool because that's where they go and like take a dip in the hot afternoon. Are you
Yeah.
kidding?
Well,
Yes, they do.
I guess I've done it, so I can't say anything.
Oh, exactly. Me too. So I can't say anything either, but I'm saying they call it a pool for a reason. But a lot of other places in like West Texas call them tanks.
Yeah,
Like a water tank.
yeah, that's what I'm
Which-
used to. Stock
Yeah.
tank.
I mean, I grew up calling it a pond. Or irrigation pond is the general term in Michigan, where because usually you have a pump in it and it's pumping water out of it to like spray water everywhere. But in Texas, if you did that, the water would be gone in a week.
Yeah, I feel like you would get in trouble with the law or something if you.
No, I'm just no. What I'm saying is like you'd pump the water out of it and
Yeah,
it'd be gone.
there's just not that
Where
much.
in Michigan, the water table's so high, it's like 5 feet below your field.
Yeah.
Anyways, they're like you pump water out of that, the water table fills it back in. It's all sand. Where here it's like all clay. You pump water out of that thing,
done.
it's gone. Like if you don't get rain, it's
Yep.
gone. So yeah. But anyways, so this one, it's got water near it, consistent water, Silver Bullet. It's got mesquite cover, nothing crazy, like not like real good structure, like nasty stuff or whatever. But we were looking through here because there's another spot that's a little closer to Old Faithful. It was very similar that we would consistently get deer coming in on. And in years past, I will say, like, that's where I've shot probably most of my
Yeah.
deer. Yeah, most of my deer. I've shot
4.
3 out of 4 deer before this past year.
Yeah.
Now I can say, like, 3 out of 6 deer on that property I've shot from that location. So it's close to that location, but it's farther away from Old Faithful. So we wanted to like kind of extend our reach a little bit and maybe pull from the neighbor's property, like kind of get out there. We didn't want to like, because they were like Plenty, you've seen them run across the field from Old Faithful to the place where I had
Yeah.
shot deer before,
Yeah.
right?
Just once, but
So
yeah, saw them do it.
yeah, but like we don't want that regular like jumping back and forth stuff. So if we've got all this land, might as well stretch it out as far as possible.
Well, and so like
So-
the theory with all these spots. So I've seen a lot of spots, especially in thick timbered places, where people look at their property, whether it's a square, circle, whatever shape it is, and they basically plan on driving around the perimeter and then hunting in. And I think our strategy is the exact opposite. Where we camp, where the main road goes through, where we fish, that's all kind of in the middle. And then we go out to
Yep.
all the edges to hunt. So we're less likely to screw it up and go through the spots and more likely to pull deer off the neighbors.
Because this property, we enjoy all recreational sports out
Yep.
there. It's like we're fishing out there, we're dove hunting out there, and if you know anything about Texas hunting, like you go out the beginning of September and you got shotguns just a flying.
Yeah.
Like you know, you get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys out there and knocking doves. Well, you want a spot for that. You don't want to be like sitting over your feeder like for a weekend or 2 weekends or whatever.
Just
like
shooting it up 3 weeks before
Exactly.
season.
Yeah, exactly. So that being said, like you gotta kind of figure that out. Think about that too. And so down the middle of the property, we've got this spot where we can dove hunt. It's got sunflowers on it. It's got water in it. Like there's not a lot of cover, which means like we're not gonna deer hunt there. There's no cover there. We're not gonna like set a feeder out in the middle of whatever. Which there is a feeder out there, which I don't.
Which
there's
we
never
kind of
been
just
a-
neglected, yeah.
Yeah, there's not a deer on that, but
We've
they
seen
probably
turkeys
do.
on it, but
But turkeys, I think it's set up for birds. It's a
Yeah.
bird feeder.
yeah.
Like turkeys, quail, whatever. Like, you know, they initially set it up for quail or whatever. But so we use that for dove hunting spot, and then we just go out to the perimeter to deer hunt, which I totally agree with. But you also want to think of like how far does a deer run when you shoot it?
Yeah,
So
that's the only
think about that too. And we've thought about that, I think. There's only one spot I would say Yucca Hill's the only one where a deer could like book it in that direction to the neighbor's property and make it.
But
Like
I think,
almost-
as we all know, a deer's more likely to run downhill than uphill too.
it's true. But well, I'm saying it could circle around that hill.
Yeah.
It could stay level and like circle back around because it's like bedding on the neighbor's property. So it's like you had a bad shot on me, I can make it, you know.
Yeah,
If you have a good shot, there is not one feeder that you could shoot off of that a deer will run all the way back to the neighbor's property or try to run on the neighbor's property and make it without just like being like, I don't feel good, I'm going to lay down.
yeah. And what I'm kind of excited about that Yucca Hill, that one too, you could get up on top of that hill. So we've got the feeder set up right on the trail where I think things are most likely to happen. But if
Yeah.
you back up and you have a bipod and you want to lay prone and get as comfortable as you want, you could take a 600-700 yard shot out into the field if you were the right rifle and were comfortable with it.
I will tell you, I will sit there with a camera for that one and
Yeah.
sit behind you. 'Cause-
I would lob at I wouldn't take a shot at a deer like that. But if I saw a coyote or a hog in that field,
Hog.
I'm
Oh,
just gonna
for sure.
send it.
Yep.
See what happens.
You're like, where should I go?
As
All
long
right,
as
this
there's
far
no-
over top, boom.
As long as there's nobody down on the river, because it is a little bit kind of pointed that way. But
Yeah, but that's, I mean, you have to,
Yeah.
take all that into account.
Yeah.
You know where people are.
Yep.
Like, obviously, if there's somebody anywhere near that area, you wouldn't do it, but
yeah,
you know where people sitting.
Yep.
And any of our stands are very that. If somebody's hiking the creek, then you have to be aware of it.
yep. And so that's kind of the next step out there is, so we've got that quad pod on one that I love that position of. We've got the platform you built on the other one. So we need to figure out
Yep.
something for the other two. And I think I did stash a pop-up blind out there, so we can set that
Yeah.
up. But then there's also a bunch of wire mesh. And so we were talking about basically
Yep.
using that wire mesh. It's not like true cattle panel or hog panel. It's like goat wire. I think it's
goat,
3x4
goat fencing.
mesh
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. It's goat fencing.
And so basically take that and like stitch it into a cube or make it into a circle and then just tuck grass and brush in it and just make kind of, it's not a totally watertight structure, but it conceals you. So I think that'd be a good setup for one or both of those spots.
No, I agree. I think that Yucca Hill we've got cover there, I think seriously I could walk out there with a chair
Yeah.
and like be fine, like sit behind a little bit of brush.
And you don't want to go too high up, like on a platform stand or something, because you're already up on a hill.
Yeah, for Yucca Hill, like, dude, sit behind a bush.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, just don't let them see you. You're fine. The other one, that's where we're gonna have to do. Where a Silver Bolt, we're gonna have to do some work.
Yeah. And maybe we just set a pop-up out there, because I've got that
Yeah,
old
we
one.
could throw. Yeah, we could throw the old pop up out there next time I'm out there. When we're dove hunting, I'll probably just take the old pop up out there
Yeah.
and then go out there with some clippers and a saw and just like knock everything down between that. And I'll probably go. I mean, I'd try to go 100 yards, but 80 would be fine. And I kind of want to go a different direction.
So we've got one
So
thing
that-
for a different wind. Yeah.
Yes, because if it were like we're going out hunting this weekend, whatever, like I'm just going, like I have it planned, and then you go out and like we have all these set up for the predominant winds, and it's not.
Yeah.
Like I would like a backup plan.
Yeah. Because
You know,
then
just be
that's
like,
our fault.
Oh, this is
Yeah.
good. Yeah, which I would like to just like clear out a shooting lane from two directions.
Yeah.
And then have one be, we could take the goat wire out there for one direction and then take the old pop up for another direction, like 90-degree angle, and then just pick which one's best for that one. So then it's like very versatile.
Just as
'Cause-
as long as you don't, that works really well if it's purely a shooting lane. I've seen people try to do that, and then they go with they get that throw and grow stuff, and they try to turn it into like a temporary food plot, but it's on a 90-degree. So there could be all these deer on one side of it that you'll never see that are standing out there eating. So it works with a corn
yeah.
feeder and a shooting lane. Does not work with a food plot.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm going to like open up lines. I'm going to leave bushes and mesquites in there, but like all the little stuff, like be able to like see things walking in, like try to like not just open up like one lane right to the feeder, but like open up like here's a lane to the feeder, and then here's a little snippet to the left,
Yeah.
and here's a little snippet to the right. So you like, oh, there's something coming in. Okay, I'm gonna set up, and then once it gets there, then you're ready to shoot. Because like I've been in a spot where it's like a tunnel, and it's like all I can see is like from me to the feeder.
Yeah.
And if they catch my wind once I get to the feeder, they're gone, and I'm not ready because they popped out and they smelled me, and we're done.
Well, and
So-
that's how it is now, but it's also all mesquite. So I would say by November, maybe not even beginning in November, but by late November, it'll be a lot more open in there when the
Yeah,
leaves drop.
you'll be able to see through that. Yeah, for sure. No. I guess it's just like knocking down the like low shrubs.
Yeah.
That are just like, if you had a great shot and you're like, but there's these like little sticks in the way. It's like, make sure those are out of the way. It's like shooting lanes for that. So,
Yep. Well, and then, so something else while we were out there that I thought was kind of cool, we all hammock camped. And that's kind
Yes,
of
we did.
become our thing recently. And dang it, I got cold out there. I have never I've lived in Texas most of my life, and I have never hung up a hammock in the summer. And I've slept in a hammock overnight in the summer many times and never gotten cold. But some weird cold front in the dry air out there, I mean, it hit probably, what do you think, 60?
no, it was probably like 67.
No, it was
Friggin'
not
Texan.
67. I'm sitting in my apartment at 73 right now. It was not, it was way colder than this. But also, like, I didn't have a sleeping bag or a blanket or
Oh, yeah,
shoes
so-
or socks, or I was just wearing basketball shorts. So I guess
Yeah.
it kind of, I was asking for it. But I'm so used to like trying to camp when it's still 85 or 90 at night.
So Plenty and Mario like legitimately like got back, threw comfortable clothes on, and like rolled into their hammock. Where
Yeah.
I did not do that. So for me, like I don't know, the weird thing, I can't sleep in a hammock, just like regular sleep in a hammock. So I'm even uncomfortable when I just like relax in one of those like throw and go hammocks. So I bring my sleeping mat out with me.
That helps a lot. Yeah.
Yes, I roll it out in the bottom of my hammock, and then like it's a double hammock, so you can like pull it all the way over.
Yep.
So I'm laying on top of an insulated mat, and then I can pull the hammock over top of my head and my whole body. Like I was fine, and I was wearing like long sleeve shirt and long sleeve or long pants or whatever. So I was like, I never got cold, but the other two didn't put the rollout mat below them, no insulation.
Yeah.
And they were both chilly.
Which, I mean, I don't know, if I'm chilly in the summer in Texas, like I say it just because it's a novel thing. Like I'm not even really mad about it. It was more just like,
Oh yeah.
I got cold.
In this spot, like it's very like arid, I would say.
Yeah.
So it's like when it's hot, it's freaking hot. If the sun's hitting you and it says it's like 95 degrees, it's 100 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's at least 5 degrees hotter. But in that sense, where we camp, it's at least 5 degrees colder at night.
When the sun goes down.
Because so like you're close enough to this like little creek here, so there's water down there that's like kind of cooling things off. And you're totally exposed. So you're at a spot where it's like as soon as the sun drops, like everything goes off. There's no like rocks that are keeping you warm or anything like that. It's just like grass and dust.
Yeah.
So it's like when the temperature drops, it drops. So it's very like desert-ish, which I love about it. So it's like I hate the hot part about it, but I like the fact that it's like if it says it's like, you know, the low is like 72 at night in the town that it's closest to, you know it's going to be in the 60s.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I like that.
It's generally pretty good for camping as long as you're not like in the tall grass getting eaten alive by chiggers.
Yep.
That's the worst.
Which I got eaten up by chiggers in Nashville last week, just walking in somebody's lawn.
Oh, dang.
So,
I went last weekend was the first time I went down to South Texas. In all the trips I've made this spring and summer, it was the first time I did not have a tick on me.
Really? I didn't know you got them that. I didn't know you got them that
Every
often
single
down there.
time I've gone down there.
Really?
And I saw some on that deer, but none got on me.
Yeah.
But it's just,
Yeah.
I think down there, it's not that there's especially many of them. They're just vicious. I think it's just such rough country that they'll latch onto anything they can get a hold of.
Yep.
But, well,
Everything down
yeah, exactly. And there's a bunch of pigs and cows, and so they probably spread them around. But, and I have gotten bit by that. What is it? That Lone Star tick, that red one with the white dot, that can carry that disease that makes you allergic to red meat. So I did not get that disease, which is good, but I know it can carry it. So it scared me a little bit.
The worst.
Yeah, that'd be bad because, yeah, I've eaten venison every day for a week. So venison or pork, I guess, every day for a week.
Out there, except I got talked into some stupid juicing diet the last 2 days. So
Uh-oh. So you're just sitting there pooping your guts out, wishing you can be eating a steak.
Hey, I thought I would be, but there's nothing going on. I don't know. Weird. Like normal digestion.
Well, I think we're the wrong podcast to explore that further.
Yep. But anyways.
Well, so we hammock camped out there. In terms of meals, we didn't really ever cook the whole time. We just kind of ate bars and snacks and jerky and
I don't like hot food when I'm hot.
yeah. Kyle just doesn't like food when he's hot. It's something we've discovered. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit chubby now, and so I'm always like, "You ready for lunch? Almost lunchtime."
Yeah.
And then Kyle's like, "It's hot. I'm not gonna eat." He's like,
I just want water.
I brought this tiny apple. That's all I need.
Yes. And it's your apples and water.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't want anything. Like, I don't feel like eating like stew, but I'll have whatever normal meals.
Yeah, no. I'm good. Just give me water.
But then the next day we went kind of after we got all our work done, it was kind of time to play a little bit. So we went down, there's an old Alumacraft John boat that we've messed around with a little bit, and we decided we've thrown it in the pond out there a couple times, and that's been fun.
Which is a big pond.
Yeah,
so
yeah. What do you think that pond is? 50 acres?
Probably. It's a good sized pond, and it's got weeds all the way around the edge of it. So like boat is like legit. Like get out in the middle of it if you want to go fishing.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we tried something different this time, and we threw that in the creek, but the creek was so full of weeds that was tough. Felt like we were just like crawling through jungle more than paddle. We weren't, well, first of all, dude, I think we're getting more redneck by the moment, because when I say paddling, like I just say that so people will understand what we're talking about, but we didn't even have a paddle. It was definitely a shovel.
Shovel.
And then when shoveling wouldn't work, we flipped it over and we were just pulling our way through it.
Flip the shovel over, not the boat.
Yeah, we never flipped the boat over. But we went out there,
Yeah.
and neither one of us really like bass to eat. Like we'll eat them, but it's not my first choice of something to eat. So we were actually after smaller panfish, trying to catch some bluegill, or I don't think there's any crappie in that creek, but just to see what we could catch. So we were just fishing with little Roadrunner jigs, and all we got was largemouth.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna bring worms out when I get
Just a bobber and worms.
Yeah. Yeah, bobber and worms, just for foodie,
Yeah.
food fishing.
Well, and you caught a little catfish on a jig too. Like that's not
did.
supposed to happen.
But he was a little under the
Yeah.
size requirements for me, like frying up some catfish.
I got excited and I was considering keeping him just because I think it was the novelty of it. I was like, oh, what? Catfish? I like fried catfish.
Yeah.
But then really looking at him, I'm like, yeah, he's too small.
He didn't have much meat on him, which that's the requirement for catfish for me. It's like that like range of like he's big enough for meat, but not too big enough or he's nasty.
Yeah. This one would have maybe barely been a fish sandwich. Both fillets.
Yeah. It's that like 1 pound to like 5 pound range. I think it's good.
Yep.
And he was not a pound.
No, he was tiny. But we caught some decent bass out there. You got broke off by a big one.
Yeah, dude, it was awesome.
And then I caught two that were
You landed 2
2-pounders.
good sized bass. Oh yeah,
Maybe 2.5.
Yeah, like creek fishing, man. Those were lunkers.
Yeah. Well, and then what we saw that was, I thought, the most interesting, we saw some grass carp in there, which we decided that they were not doing their job because they needed to be working double time to even break even with the amount of weed growth in that thing.
Yeah, there's just weeds. I mean, we were like hitting these holes that were like tiny. They were like 10 feet by 10 feet holes that were like, all right, drop it in here.
Yeah. But everything we did, we
so
could have done
bad.
with cane poles.
Oh yeah, no, I did not need a legitimate fishing pole to do what we
You
did.
could have like taken your kid's
Would've.
Spider-Man pole and gotten the exact same results.
Yeah, I mean, really, I stole his reel and put it on a small, little like dock pole, and that's what I was actually using.
But in that instance, it didn't matter one bit.
It did not. You casted like 20 feet, and you're like,
most,
oh
yeah.
no, I hit the weeds. Too far.
But what we did see in there was a big, I think it was more than one big needle-nose gar.
Yeah, the
Like
gar were-
as long as the boat was wide. So probably, I think that was probably 2 3 to 4 foot gar.
I think that's what I want to take out, actually.
Yeah.
If I take anything out of that water, I'm just like, I just want to kill it. It would be that gar.
Well, and apparently
Or
that's
a couple.
that's what Nate was saying a while back, and he was like, "Yeah, bring your bow fishing rig." I thought he was talking about the grass carp, because I'm like, "No, we want those in there."
No.
Normally, you don't want
Yeah.
grass carp,
Oh.
but in that instance, we do, because they're actually eating all that
You do.
junk.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those gars,
Get
'Cause
rid of the guard.
I remember when
They're eating the panfish,
Yeah,
dude.
I remember when the panfish there, you could like, it was almost silly. You could just be like, got one, got one, and just keep pulling them in.
Yeah.
But we didn't catch a single one. We caught a dozen bass.
And guards start coming down, and they just like friggin' decimate
Chomp
the
away.
panfish population. Yeah.
But
I'm good.
it was still fun. I mean, we didn't get too muddy. We didn't sink the boat.
Had a couple beers. I mean that was our time limit. It was we brought 4 beers, 2 for each of us, and we're like, when we're done with the beer, we're gonna go back in. So
yeah. How long do you
we
want to
drank
fish?
a couple beers.
2 beers?
Yeah. 2 beers. I don't know how long that is, but
Yeah.
whatever that is, that's how long we're gonna fish. That boat was freaking hot. I've learned I'm gonna bring like a towel or an extra shirt to sit on.
Yeah.
Because that aluminum in this middle of freaking July or August or whatever that was awful. Other than that, I was good to go. I was like splashing water up out of the creek onto the boat
Like,
constantly.
I don't care if I get my butt wet, just as long as I'm not frying.
Exactly. I wanted my butt wet at that point. It's like burning my butt.
And I was just like, if I don't move, if I sit right here, I'm good. If I sit anywhere else, it's going to be scalding hot.
I'm a stander. I stand in the boat. I'm the weirdo that's like, I gotta stand up. Like, I don't care if it's a kayak or a canoe. I'm gonna stand up. It's like tiny little, like 10-foot little John boat. I'm like, I'm standing up. And then I sit back and I'm like, ow.
And then on our way back in, when we were trying to pull back in, I was trying to show you that when you stand up and you bob the canoe.
Oh yeah, no.
So there's this thing that you can do. I've done it in just, a classical double-ended like Old Town canoe, where you can basically you both stand up, one guy in the bow, one guy in the stern at extreme ends. And with your knees, you kind of bend and jump, and you kind of do like a little bunny hop, and the whole canoe just goes up and down. And then the person in the front does it opposite, and you can inchworm your way. I think it was originally a drill that I learned for like, if everybody loses their paddles, what do you do? And so maybe it's one of these like stupid, useless, hypothetical skills. But when I taught like canoeing and sailing at summer camp, that was like at one of the advanced levels where there's like, you already know everything you need to know, but here's something just to prove it. That was one of those skills. And so people would do the little bunny hop thing across the lake. But we tried it in a flat bottom John boat going backwards across weeds. Didn't work.
So here's 2 things to say about that. 1, yes, you are correct. That does work. 2, I cannot clap my hands and sing at the same time. And if you know what that means,
Kyle's the guy in the
when
Baptist church clapping on 1 and 3 when everybody else is clapping on 2 and 4.
I guess here's the third thing. I don't know what 1 and 3 and 2 and 4 mean. So, yes, that's me. I don't know. So as he's bouncing on one end of the boat, I'm like trying to bounce at the same time or whatever.
You're just looking at me like,
clue.
Stop it.
I'm just like,
this is dumb.
I'm just like bouncing up and down. So here's the thing. Like 2 days later, I got home and I saw this video of a guy like on this like underwater surfboard thing. He's like above the water, but like this thing was like down water, and he just was like doing the thing where he just like lean left and right, and it like he was like cruising around this lake, and I was like, dude, that's what he was talking about. I get it. It works, but not with me. Don't try to get me to do your rhythm. I can't follow anyone else's rhythm. I am a man who like beats to his own drum.
Okay.
So leave me alone.
Well,
dude.
next time we'll use an Old Town canoe, and I'll let you lead the dance, and we'll do it.
We'll use an Old Town canoe, and I'll stand on the shore and watch you and one other person do it.
That's what he's talking about. Doing that weird boat jumping thing.
I'll record this on the video camera here.
It's a thing. I'll figure out what it's called, and I'll send you a link or something. But
I totally agree that it's a thing. Like the air or the hydrodynamics or whatever, that totally works. I can't do it.
Well,
I never doubted you. I was just like, I'm doubting myself. I can't do this. Leave me alone.
You're like, I know the ropes and the tree stuff and the climbing gear. I know that stuff.
I don't have to clap my hands to a beat to climb up a tree. Tie a knot.
Yeah. Well, I sent around I started a Google Doc just because I know, like, I'm the worst about lists. And it's like every time we go out there, I'm like, hey, Kyle, guess what I forgot? And you're like, I don't know, your food, your water, your underwear, something important. I'm like, yep, all the
Everything.
above.
Yep.
So I started making lists. And so I started a Google Doc of just a list of things to think about or do on that property. So I think
Who did you share that with?
what's that?
Who did you share that with?
You, Nate, Daniel, didn't have Mario's info.
Okay, I'll give you or I'll share with Mario.
Cool.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, so shared that. So we've got a list of things. I think one more basically solid work day, and we're ready to go for season.
Yeah.
And then it's
I mean, I think I'm gonna when I'm out there dove hunting, which I don't think you're gonna make it out when I go out. But when I'm out there, I'm probably gonna get some of that done.
cool. Yeah, and if we need to set up a
That'll-
time before that, and like, or if I can pregame some of that stuff, we'll get it figured out. But we're close.
It'll be as any Texan knows. Excuse me. As any Texan knows, dove hunting is a social event.
Yeah,
So when I go out there and hang out with some buddies, all the work's probably not going to get done.
yeah. But I mean, probably count on like one or two things getting done. So
Oh, for sure. And my 6-year-old is like excited. He was asking about that wooden stand because he helped like spray paint a lot of the stuff and like paint a lot of the pieces of that. And so he really wanted to see that. So we'll go out there and check that out and like get some things done there. And I want to make a rifle blind for that spot too, for where the old blue. So he wants to do that. So we'll probably work on that together and then
Little brush
do
blind or
a couple
something.
other things. Yeah. Yeah. So he's excited to get out there. So like that's one of my big things this year is like get him on the like beginning process. So when we go out and like sit together to like hunt deer,
yeah,
then he's like, hey, I remember I helped with this. Like that was the big thing about that stand is like, I want him to help with this. So when we go out and sit in it, he's like proud of like, I helped build this in the garage.
yeah.
And now it's sitting out here, like we're hunting deer off of it. Like that's important to me. So like, that was a big thing for me. It was like, that was important.
Well, and some people will crap on Texas hunting because it's not as Western and hike out there and spin. But it's a lot more just like set things up right, take the time to do it right, work on the place, and then it will be good. And so I think it's cool that you're getting him involved so that when he's at that point where eventually he's going to be deer hunting and shooting, he already has seen all the behind the scenes and knows kind of what goes into it, and he appreciates all those little pieces instead of it being, just some random thing that Dad was
Like,
doing.
show up and pull the trigger type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not about that. And I have a buddy who does that, who like pretty much like, in which it's okay, like whatever, like they harvested the whole animal and ate all the meat. I don't care. But like legitimately like showed up with his daughter, set a gun on like not a tripod, like a full like just set the gun here. They like aimed it at the deer. She like literally looked down the scope and pulled the trigger and shot a deer. And I was like, and that was it. They like left, like grabbed the deer, took it to a processor, and like we're gone. And I was like, no, that's not the experience I want for my kid.
Well,
I'm like, I'm okay with that. It's fine. Like that's cool if like that's like what you want to do. But for my kid, like I want him to be like part of the process. Like, what do I have to do to go out and get a deer?
yeah.
Then when I go out to hunt that deer, then what do I have to do? And then once I kill it, now what do I have to do? Because like he's gonna be sitting there with a little paring knife, like cutting fat off the legs or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna do it all, and my 6-year-old eats it up like that. Like he loves it, and the amazing part of it is he loves to eat it too.
Yeah,
Both of
that's
them.
awesome.
My 6-year-old and 3-year-old are like, when are we having deer meat again? Why? And here's the next question: why isn't it bloody when they eat it? Why isn't it bloody? I like it when it's bloody. And I'm like, dang it, I overcooked it.
Yeah, because you're very much on the rare or medium rare, which I think is the
Yes.
right way to do it.
Well, yeah, because they'll say when it's not bloody, they're like, they notice it.
Yeah.
Like, my 3-year-old says
Yeah.
this. He's like, it's so chewy. I like it when it's bloody. And I'm like, you can tell all of America that, and they might become deer hunters.
Well, I mean, it just backs up, like, get a 3-year-old to prove it, but it backs up what we all know about
Yes.
wild game. The
Yes.
number one way to
Yes.
screw it up is to overcook it.
Overcook it, yeah.
And I've done it, you've done it, we've all done it, but
Oh,
we know
yeah,
better.
Yeah. I get criticized by my 3-year-old every time I do it, so whatever.
Dad, you see how I have these pointy teeth now? I want to use them.
Yes. Yeah, right. Like,
Yeah.
but I guess I'll have to because you overcooked this deer meat.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Well, anything else? I think it's fun just going out there working on the property. And, you know, I know
Yeah.
some people who only have one spot they want to hunt and that's all they care about. But I like the idea of just seeing a property grow and get better. And there's a lot of potential spots. And, you know, there's a chance that some of these spots we'll never hunt.
Yeah, for sure.
I think most likely we'll probably hunt them all. But maybe one
Yeah.
of these spots will get one
Well,
sit. But that's
Here's
okay.
the thing. We've had deer on every single one of them. So that's what we haven't said. So we have a camera on all of them. So, and a cell camera on all of them.
Yeah.
We've seen deer at all 4 locations on this property. And when I said it was big, it depends on your idea of big. I would say it's like a little under 2,000 acres. So whatever you think about that, I don't
1,500,
know.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing 18, but I don't know.
I think it also hunts smaller than it is.
Yeah.
Like some properties,
Because there's spots that are just flat and barren.
just
it's
yeah,
like
nothing.
it seems like desert. I
Yeah.
mean, like there's stuff out there, but like for the cows, but like it's desert land.
But in terms of the deer over here are not the same deer as the deer over on this other
Yeah.
side. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have like a 200-acre pocket here and a 100-acre pocket here and a 200-acre pocket here, and you know, like it's all these little pockets of like brush and whatever. So that being said, it's not a giant property because you've got guys out there who has 40,000 acres to hunt on or whatever. But that like we've tried to maximize our potential, split up where our feeders are, like 4 corners, but not too close to the edge of the property. So like a deer runs 50 yards, it's still on properties. So it's like those are the things you want to think through. And then we've left ourselves for recreational stuff down the middle of the property.
Yeah. Just a place to camp and have fun. And that reminds me, something that I didn't mention. So in the middle of the day when we were just kind of messing around at camp, so our buddy Daniel was out there. He just got a new bow. He's just getting into archery for the first time this year. So we got all his stuff bolted on the bow. And so he was getting sighted in. And for his first time shooting a compound bow, aside from the shop where he just got fit and stuff, he was doing great. I was super excited for him.
Yeah,
He was doing
it's
really
awesome.
well, and he's super excited about it right now. And then the broadhead that I put through, so I got a video of me shooting a pig with my bow.
Hey, check that. Oh, I was gonna say the
Well, yeah,
barrel.
so that exact same
Holy
broadhead,
shit.
not the same model, but literally the exact same head that had already gone through a pig and buried in the dirt. I picked up the same arrow, same head, and I shot it through a steel barrel, and it went through and through both sides of it and buried in the dirt. Yeah.
2 times.
Yeah,
if
we
you
only
didn't
showed it
know.
once on camera, but actually it went straight through twice. It bent the arrow pretty bad the second time, but the head was
Yeah.
still okay. So
after it like got like not even I'm gonna say mangled, but it wasn't mangled.
Yeah.
It went through that barrel both sides first time. It was like you could see like little like bends and whatever
Yeah.
in the like slight edges. He shot it again. It went through both sides of that barrel
Yeah.
again.
and I'm not
Yeah.
shooting I'm not shooting 80 pounds. I'm shooting 65.
Yeah.
And like a while back, there was, I don't even remember what broadhead company, but they would bring a car door to the ATA show that they had shot an arrow through, and they would brag that they're like, our broadhead can go through a car door. And now after seeing this, I'm like, so?
Yeah. So can 5 other broadheads.
Yeah, I'm like, that would be easy
this
for
one that I'm going to use. Yeah.
But, and it flies really well, and that was the same one I used on my hunt last weekend. So I was excited about that. And then, Kyle, I'm going to make you bring up something bitter. Do you want to tell the story of the PSE?
So, yes, I do. Freaking crossbow. I have this PSE Fang. I think it's a Fang. So PSE Fang, and I'm just like, every year, shoot 40 bolts out of it before I want to shoot at an animal. But it's like a 10, 15 at a time. And so I'm going through this. I'm like, all right, time to shoot a couple of rounds. So I think I shot probably 2 or 3 already.
Yeah.
3 or 4, actually.
Yeah.
And I pull the strings, cock it back, and one of the limbs, well, actually, I cocked it back, and I just hear the crack. And I was like,
yeah,
what the?
We just heard a really loud snap, and we're like,
everybody hears it snap.
Nobody move.
We're all like, there's a lot of pressure here. Like, what do we do? And so I'm treating this thing like it's a freaking grenade that I pulled the pin out of.
Yeah, like you're carrying a mousetrap in your bare hands.
Yes. And I'm like, ugh. So I'm sitting there, I'm just like, what the hell? Like, what do I do? And I didn't know what had happened at the time when I pulled the ropes back. So, like, I'm just like, I don't know. And so the thing about this crossbow, you can't let it down. Like, there's no
it
way
does
to
not
let
have
it
a
down.
decock mechanism. Like a lot of these new,
Nope.
the Raven and the Mission, you can just ease them
Yeah.
down. This one, you gotta shoot it.
Yep. You have to shoot it somehow. So I'm like, well, what the heck? Like, I have to put, I don't even know what that arrow is called that has like the big rubber end on it that you can just shoot into the ground. What's that called? You know?
A decocking arrow, a discharge arrow, something like that.
I don't know. Discharge. It's a bolt, man.
With a
It's not it's not an arrow. It's
oh
a
yeah,
bolt.
oh yeah. Easton's trying to actively call them crossbow arrows, and so they've
Anyways, I don't care.
they've compromised me.
Yeah. So I'm like, so I have to put this arrow like into the crossbow.
I gotta load it and
So
shoot
you have
it.
to like reach into the front of the crossbow and like slide an arrow into it to like shoot it off into the ground or whatever. And I'm like, oh, my hand is gonna be gone after this. And so like as I'm putting it in there, I think I looked down and I saw the crack in the arm of the
And you're like,
crossbow.
that's where that's why it made that sound.
there's a line across this arm of the crossbow. What's going on here? So I was like, all right, well, I gotta do it anyways. So I like slide this thing in there. I'm like, have my face turned away from it. And
It was like the
and so I
old like
slide it
little
in,
kid
nothing
soccer when you get the penalty kicks and everybody like lines up in front of the goal and
Yeah.
covers their nuts. Like
yes,
it's basically
you turn
that.
your face away. Yeah, cover your crotch, turn your face away, and you're like, all right, this is gonna hurt. Like that was my thought. I slide it in there, and I like look away, and I just like shoot off the like decocking arrow, and nothing. Like it didn't shatter or the line didn't break off it or anything. Luckily, but it's a freaking broken crossbow.
Yeah, and then the response
And
you
I-
got was
like-
basically, we can't
Yeah,
do anything
yeah.
about it. Get your dealer to figure it out. Like,
So
not.
here's my little PSA on PSE: don't buy one because they're jackasses.
Dang. Well, I kind of get their perspective because it's like they don't do consumer direct sales, but it would sure help if they were like, yeah, we can send you this part or go to this authorized dealer and tell
Well,
them to ask for
yeah.
this.
It was so short. It was just like, we can't do anything about it. Go to an authorized dealer, buy. Like that was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It was like no other like, let me know how else I can help, or if you want me to find a dealer, let me know, or we'll talk to the dealer, or anything like that. Like nothing. Like that's what kind of pissed me off. Was it was like there's nothing outside of like, we can do nothing about this, go to a dealer. Like, can you really do nothing about it? Like, how much product do you ship through that dealer? Like, can you just like give him a heads up? Like, hey, this guy's coming in. He's got a broken arm. Like, can you hook him up, dude?
Yeah.
Like, this could have like shattered in my face and like broken my hand as I'm like trying to let down the.
Well, in some of those companies,
like
it's interesting. Next time you walk into Academy, they'll have like a little like bulletin board up front that has a lot of the consumer recalls. Every year there's a crossbow on there. That is something that Academy is worried about the liability of this crossbow, and so they want to help you out because they don't want anybody to get hurt. And so that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. Like when you had not a catastrophic failure, but the potential for one, I thought they were going to be very much not even necessarily out of their goodwill helping you, but very much out of just like, nope, well, we don't want to risk anything bad, so we're just going to button this up and take care of it.
For sure.
And then I was kind of surprised at the response you got.
Is that they wanted to avoid like lawsuit, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Like that was my whole thought. Is like, why wouldn't you as a business want to be like, hey, let's remedy this so this guy is happy and doesn't like sue me or whatever.
Yeah.
You know? Like that was my whole thought. I was like, I mean, if I was a businessman, I'd be like, this little cost to like send him a new like cheap crossbow or whatever.
Part. Yeah.
Go for it. Like let's fix it. Like, no, I can't do anything, and I don't have anything to say about that. Just like go to some PSE dealer and pay for it. Like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. And now you're getting
like
two jackholes on the internet talking bad stuff about it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even want it. Like, I don't even want them to fix it because, like, because I'm like, if they fix one arm, the other one's probably gonna crack when I walk out in the field next time. Like,
you just don't trust it.
I don't trust it anymore. It's what, 6 years old, which like I'm like, it could be kind of old, but like it's been literally hanging in a closet in my house.
Yeah.
Not like out in the sun or like in the elements or even in my garage or anything.
Yeah.
It's been hanging in my house, air conditioned, like it's 70 degrees every day all year in my house. And this happens after like
just
that
had
just
one cock too many.
Yeah. Which
that
I
didn't
don't
sound
think it was that many. What are we in prison again?
Again, what are you talking about?
It just doesn't seem like, I don't know who cocked it that many times.
Yeah. But so
I didn't.
Well,
you did.
No.
I didn't.
I shot it maybe 500 times, like, and that's pushing it. I don't even think I shot it that much, but
it should go way beyond that.
Yeah.
Like not even close, like way beyond that.
Well, so it sounds like you don't trust it anyway, but in the category of things you do trust, you're just going back to being Kyle Jack O'Connor Rice, knock everything down with the 270 and just
right.
And now you have ammo.
When's opening day? When's opening day for gun season? That's all I have to say.
That old Ruger 270 is just hadn't let you down.
Right.
Old faithful.
And he's gonna. Hey, I cleaned him today. I'm gonna go back out and shoot him and get a little dust in the barrel. But I will also tell you, looking down the barrel of my what's my camo gun? Shotgun.
Oh, that Mossberg? That 500?
Mossberg 500?
Yeah.
That thing is nasty.
Dude, I don't think I've cleaned my...
No. Not dirt-wise. Like, it is not very smooth. So, looking down my Browning A5, like, that thing is sleek as the baby's bottom right there. Like, looking down that thing. And that was the nastiest gun I've ever cleaned in my life. I clean that thing because we've been shooting it all summer, like at Clays and stuff.
Yeah.
And I cleaned that sucker out, and I got so much freaking gunk out of that thing. But that was still like looking down it, like just smooth.
Is it
like,
chrome lined?
Nice. It must be. I don't know.
Because that's the thing.
But
Because any rust or anything, you'll start seeing little bitty pits and stuff like that. But if it's chrome lined, you wipe it clean and it'll be mirror finish again.
So my Mossberg 500 is only 2 years old, and it's already got like these like weird like little grooves down it and stuff. It's like it is not smooth at all, and I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's not even dirty. Like I'm in there like trying to scrub it out and everything
With a
being
brush?
Like, man, these. Well,
Or
I was just
patches?
like using patches.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, I've got the stuff in there, but like looking there, it just doesn't look. It's not the gunk. It just doesn't look smooth as a bore. Like,
Yeah.
doesn't look great. I don't know. It doesn't.
I think it's okay.
not-
I think Mossbergs aren't meant to be clean.
It's not that it's not that it's dirty. It's
Yeah.
not. It's that it's not smooth. Like, why wouldn't it start off smooth? I guess I should have pulled that barrel off and just looked down it through a light and been like, send that one back.
No, I bet it was okay. And I don't know. I'd need to look at it. But I also can't say anything. My cleaning process for my Mossbergs involves Krylon spray paint. So
Yeah.
I can't really
Yeah.
say anything.
Which I would agree with, but this Mossberg has also like, I've pulled the trigger on it and it's hit a shell and not
Yeah,
fired.
it did
multiple
have a
times.
weird like seating issue. I forgot about
Yeah.
that.
So like I'm like making sure everything's tight and clean everything out and making sure everything's like good and secure and all that stuff. And I just
Well,
for
remind
a
me
Mossberg 500,
to
I
bring
don't
you a
trust it.
500 barrel next time we hang out because I've got a couple different ones, and so we can just test it with something else. But we'll get it figured out.
Yeah. Because I don't trust that gun
Yeah.
either, which is sad because it's a Mossberg. Like everything I've heard about a Mossberg is like fucking, what is it, like paddle your boat
Yeah.
up to shore and get your ducks or whatever. Like, well, I would agree with that, except I've shot at a deer with it and it didn't shoot, and I've shot at a duck with it and it didn't shoot.
Yeah.
And when I pulled that shell out, it had a dimple in it and it was not fired.
Yeah.
Which is scary.
I don't
as
know.
hell.
Well, I mean, if we can't get it figured out with changing a couple things around, then call Mossberg, and they're a Texas company, and hopefully they'll give you better customer service than PSE did.
Yeah. I'll drive to their location and be like, hey, can you check
You might
this
not
out?
want to drive to their location. Do you know where that is?
Oh,
Eagle
where is it?
Pass. It's a part of Texas that doesn't speak English.
I was gonna say I know where Eagle Pass, Colorado is.
It's on the border, and I think that's the difference between a Mossberg 500 and a Maverick 88. The safety's in a different place, and one's made by Joe and the other's made by Jose. And they just shuttle people across, and that's why they're $100 different
Hey.
price, but half the parts are the same.
I'm fine with
Yep.
Jose, but I want my barrel to
Yep.
be good.
Yep. So I've got one of each, and both of mine are fine. So I don't know.
What was that? A Mossberg or a what?
Maverick 88.
Maverick.
It's a Mossberg 500, but they just put the safety instead of on the top of the receiver. It's got the Tang safety that's forward and back. It's got a button safety in the trigger that's a crossbolt safety.
Okay.
So it's that and like one or two other minor like fit and finish things, but otherwise
Yeah.
the barrels are interchangeable. The bolt, it's the
Gotcha.
same design.
Yeah. I'm fine with a thumb safety as long as it works correctly.
I like the thumb safety way better because I'm lefty.
Yeah. Yeah. And with a Ruger, I'm like, that makes sense. Like, that's what I use with my 270.
Well,
thumb
with
safety.
your Mark II, and then my Hawkeye, they went back in time and did that Mauser safety. Even though the Hawkeye's later. They went
All
to
of
it.
my rifles have the thumb safety.
Yeah. I mean, mine's technically a thumb safety, but it's a rotating deal.
Gotcha.
But yep. All right. Well, we covered everything from catching bass in a creek to filling up corn feeders to bashing on PSE to talking about spy point cameras to me getting cold in a hammock in July to Kyle eating tiny apples to just about everything. So I think
we did it.
just about covered it. So hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're listening to the podcast later, make sure to check in to YouTube, because some of these things that we've talked about are cool YouTube videos that I've recorded. They might be kind of fun to watch.
Yes. Go back and watch the actual hunting videos. They're amazing.
The hunting stuff, the shooting barrels with an arrow. It's some fun stuff. But we'll keep going. We've got some more podcasts. We've got another one. We've got to talk about some hunting goals. We want to talk about some other stuff this season. But just stay tuned, because there's a lot in the works. So until next time, stay safe, be free, and never stop seeking adventure.